Кај македонските граѓани владее разочараност. Е првиот впечаток на францускиот дипломат и поранешен специјален представник на Европската унија во Македонија Ален Лероа. Лероа, кој неодамна беше во Скопје, во интервју за емисијата Трилинг со оценка дека после парламентарните и претседателски избори Македонија треба да се фокусира во спроведувањето на уставните промени за да се забрза македонскиот пат кон Европската унија. Тој во интервјуто за емисијата Трилинг вели: преферирам патриотизам наместо национализам. Ево го разговорот со него.
I know I feel a lot of disappointment in this country about the long way for the EU accession. I see the frustration. I feel that people don't consider that there's not enough reward of what has been achieved by North Macedonia in the recent years, the Prečka agreement, the framework with Bulgaria, and so many achievements in the country with not sufficiently reward for the EU. But I remain optimistic because then remains one last obstacle, the question with Bulgaria, and I'm sure there are ways to overcome this obstacle. They are now on the table of Macedonia and of the EU, and then I'm sure that Macedonia has all the means, once the negotiations start, to go quick with the implementation of what is required by the EU, because there is a lot of potential in this country and a lot of common values with the EU. So I see the skepticism in the country, for sure, the disappointment, the frustration, but I remain optimistic. Macedonia has shown in the past how they are able to overcome an obstacle. It is the last obstacle, and then the road will be there, and probably when North Macedonia will be in the EU, it will be the end of the transition. North Macedonia will be a member of the European Union. I don't know the date exactly, but I'm sure in the near future.
Is there any risk for a new destabilization in the region or in Macedonia?
No, I don't see any risk of that type, not from outside. No, there are still, of course, some disputes, internal disputes, and I would say normal political dispute as in any democracy. And you will have elections soon, but I don't see any risk of destabilization from abroad. No, I don't see that at all. That was the case in the past. It's no more. That's done.
Do you recognize leadership and a vision of the future for the country among Macedonian politicians?
Yes. As in any country, in a democracy, in France, in Europe, politicians are criticized, like in any countries. But at the same time, they are doing their job, and you'll have elections. We all hope this election will be free and fair. The people have to go to vote, and then we'll see what will be the outcome. But I'm sure during the electoral campaign they will express their vision, and it will be for the Macedonians to decide. That I don't have to comment on that. That is the choice of the Macedonian citizens.
In one of the interviews a few years ago, you will say, I think that the signing of the Ohrid agreement was a good thing that happened to Macedonia. How do you evaluate it now, the inter-ethnic relation in Macedonia?
I will state the same statement. I think the Ohrid Framework Agreement was criticized, of course, because it's a compromise. It's never perfect, but it's a great achievement for the country because it brought peace in the country. And I remind everyone of the sentence of Benjamin Franklin. He said, there was never a good war and there was never a bad peace. It means, thanks to the agreement, you avoided what could have been a bloody war since 20 years ago. Now the country is in peace, of course with internal domestic issues, like in any vibrant democracy. And I think now people have understood how this agreement was useful to ensure sufficient rights for the Albanian community, and they are part of the normal life, normal democratic life. I'm sure there are some critics here and there, but globally I feel that the population understand that it was extremely useful for the country to have this agreement being signed, to avoid a war and to have more peaceful coexistence among all communities.
In region and also in Macedonia, in meantime, we have national rhetoric. How do you see in this question? Nationalism.
I always prefer patriotism to nationalism. Patriotic, so you of course you're happy with you defend your country, you defend your identity, that is fine. Nationalism, For me, I prefer cooperation between the communities and cooperation with the neighboring countries. The more patriotism is, that's fine. I hope nationalism is not too radical.
The most worrying aspects of the EU report relate to the judiciary and negative assessment of the country and independence, integrity of justice. Is the justice and corruption the problem in Macedonia now?
I've seen, of course, a report of the EU Commission on North Macedonia, and justice system was a big part of their concern. So it's clear, it was clearly said in the European Union Commission report. But at the same time, it's very important. We know that's very difficult to improve a judicial system, and I think very much when the day the negotiation will start, when North Macedonia will be in the accession phase, there will be a lot of assistance from the EU to help having a more independent judiciary, and more better separation of power. There will be assistance because we have this experience in so many countries of the EU. I know there is a big concern, the EU Commission said it, but I hope very much that could be overcome the day the negotiation with the EU start and with the assistance of the EU.
After the Prespa agreement, Brussels said you can start the negotiation process, but the next step is to resolve the problem with Bulgaria. Now we are waiting to find the acceptable solution with Bulgaria. Is the Bulgaria now the last steps for the Macedonian?
Yes, I'm convinced it is the last step, the last obstacles, because you have shown so much courage, so much determination to join the EU, and even last week for the summit of the Western Balkans here with the EU representative, with the growth plan of the EU, the 6 billion euro for the region. I've seen the declaration of the leaders, and including the one here in North Macedonia. The willingness from this country, and the willingness from the EU, and I very much hope that you will find, the EU and North Macedonian leaders will find ways to overcome this last obstacle.
Thank you for the interview.
My pleasure. Благодарам.